Welcome to Totally Talent Podcast by HR.com, your go-to source for all things talent. Whether you're looking for expert insights on high-volume hiring, the latest trends in recruitment technology, or strategies for building a winning team, we've got you covered. Join us for each episode as we dive deep into the challenges and opportunities shaping the talent landscape today. Let's get started.
Hey friends, welcome back to another edition of Totally Talent. I'm your host, Mike Wood from HR.com, and I have a very special guest on the program today, Miss Janie Mah. Janie and I last were together at HR West in Oakland. So she's dialing into the program from Oakland, and I'm excited to have you on here because it's always a good conversation. We've been talking for 20 minutes before we even started this episode, but can you just introduce yourself to the listeners and let's talk about the great resource that you wrote for recruiting.
Absolutely. Great conversation. Again, like Mike, 20 minutes doesn't seem like enough, but thanks so much for having me here. So basically, I'm a talent strategist. I think that's what they're calling it these days, learning consultant, all of those things. But I basically been in this space for the last, 30 years, just helping organizations think about how they grow, hire, and support their people from the full life cycle. And I recently released a practical guide. We call it ebook these days, called The Prompted Pathways, Building a Skills First Talent Strategy with AI. And, and I know we've had several conversations, just all of the emerging with everything AI. I really wanted to come up with a very practical guide and using AI and in the concept of skills first thinking to make career development more inclusive, addressing the D&I, making it agile so it's adaptable throughout the whole talent life cycle, and then really aligning to how work really happens today, right, with all the changes. So thank you again for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. I mean, this is great because we're all using AI kind of tentatively. We're all kind of learning it tentatively, and we're learning it together. And anybody that says that they're an expert in it, it may be like 2 days ahead of the rest of us because things are moving so fast. So I love that you're helping people kind of get started with using this because once you start using it, it's one of those technology epiphany moments that you're like, oh wow, this really is going to change everything. Like I was telling my kids about it. They're young, so they don't really know AI, but they're like 9. I was
You
saying,
don't know that.
well, I was saying that to me this reminds me of like I remember. I'm going to date myself a little bit. I was in 8th grade when the first kind of peer-to-peer file sharing on Napster started. So I'm outside of Boston. That was started by some kid at Northeastern in Boston. But I remember downloading a music file and just being like, I mean, it took all night. It was dial up. It took the entire night to do the whole thing. But once I got it, I'm like, I'm never buying a CD again. Like, this is amazing. And so it's just like one of those technologies, or when you first started having Netflix, where it wasn't the DVDs, it was all streaming. And you're like, this is going to change how my viewing patterns. I think that this type of AI that we're using is going to change recruiting, and hopefully it changes recruiting for the better. And that's kind of where you come in. So, Janie, your book, it emphasizes like the shift to a skills first approach. Now, for talent acquisition professionals, this represents a significant change. So everybody's been going for it's not just skills, it's you're having degree requirements, you're having all this stuff. But can you elaborate on why traditional credential-based hiring is becoming less effective, and what do you think the key drivers are pushing companies towards prioritizing skills?
Oh, absolutely. And, that's a big one,
It's
right?
a huge question. So any part of it you want to answer, that's fine.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm especially excited to talk about what this means for TA teams in general, because what oftentimes we forget is that so much of this shift starts actually at the hiring stage. So, we're still seeing that the hiring is still based on degrees, job titles, right? If you go on LinkedIn, you can look for certain job titles and it will still populate and give you all the different searches, but it's no longer working because the roles are changing so fast. And I recently read in one of the World Economic Forum projects that 44% of the workers' core skills will change within 5 years. And many of the organizations are already seeing the entire job family shift every 12 to 18 months. And this is really due to all the emerging technologies like generative AI, right? When I first started at Cisco, it was one of the earlier companies that was very much project-based work. So it's almost like being a consultant. So your allocation, the percentage was based on the projects you work on. Well, there's actually a rise in project-based work across all the cross-functional roles. So what does that mean? That means that you had to have multi-skills to be able to pivot. And you don't just come in with one type of project. We used to, at a certain point in time, we said, okay, jack of all trades or Jane of all trades was good. And then if we shifted to, no, we need to have unique set of skills, certification, in order to be able to be successful. Well, now we're basically coming full circle again, saying more is better. How do you pivot? How do you go and change and leverage all of your different skills in order to be successful? What problems are we solving for? So the business model is also pivoting. So that's requiring new capabilities, right? And then we have a huge amount of expectation because we've heard the word agile. We've been hearing that throughout the trend. Well, agile, being creative, collaboration across business units, teams, even customers, that's always been there. But now it's even greater because we have AI tools that are driving efficiency and making process go faster. Where we used to depend on the systems and tools to help us communicate the statuses of our progress or the completion of our projects. But now AI is doing that. So now how do we change that? How do we pivot, right? What kind of skills do we need to bring the human skills in order to partner with AI? So if you think about it, by the time the job is actually posted, the skills that are needed might have already been shifted. That's already shifted. So what that means is that the traditional role definition, and you have static job description where we copy and paste and we just kind of repeat the cycle. They are so quickly, they become outdated so fast that it makes marketing very difficult. It impacts our customer experience and even impacts the whole HR life cycle, like succession planning, workforce development, internal mobility, and so on, right? The list goes on and on. There's all this impact. So that's really critical why we hire for skills rather than for titles. Because it's really not just about, we want to be smarter. We're recognizing that the old signals that we used to go and look for is not really telling us that someone can actually do the job. So we're not looking at the job title. We're not looking at the past experiences, or we're not even going down to looking at, they worked at X and Y Z company. They're Fortune 100 or Fortune 10 companies. We're getting really down to what skills do you bring? But before we can do that, right, we had to go and identify what that looks like in order to do the job effectively.
That's great. So as we move to skills first hiring, AI can help. What's an easy way that AI can help recruiters kind of as they move forward?
Well, so when we talk about starting with the hiring as it's really a good place the starting point, we should really be looking at the job description. That's the best place to start, right? So if you think of it as a capability profile rather than a whole laundry list of requirements. So I'll give you an example. Like one of my past clients, so they were trying to fill a product manager role, but the job description read more like a checklist, like from 5 years ago. MBA required, 8+ years of experience, a long list of, here, you need to know how to do these tools and, everything under the sun. And then when you dug a little deeper, you find out that those tools weren't even part of their day-to-day job. So one of the the initial suggestion that I made was, let's just take a step back first. Let's reframe this. So instead of focusing on what the candidate had done, how about we focus on what they need to do? Right? So what does success look like the first 6 to 12 months? What are the core skills and behaviors that would actually drive that success? So this is the hardest part, because we're not really inclined to change, because we've been historically copy and pasting. So we just kind of repurpose same job descriptions, right? We have a template. But what we had to do was strip out the degree and tenure filters. And we actually collaborated even more with the hiring manager to identify what are the must-have capabilities. And then use one of the AI prompts from my ebook to rewrite the job post in a way that it was actually more inclusive and skills forward. So being a more inclusive, you're also addressing the DE&I. So once they re-uploaded the job posting, what was so interesting was that they actually started attracting more diverse and qualified slate of candidates. And my hiring manager actually even told me that this impacted the types of interviews that they were having. And it has shown that the interviews were the strongest that they've ever had in a long time. It was extremely meaningful. So it really just starts with a very simple shift. We think about the job description as a capability profile and not a checklist.
I love that way of phrasing the job description as more of like capabilities. I love that. So the book itself, I've gone through it. It provides a framework for kind of aligning the talent lifecycle with skills. Now, we all know there's attract and hire, but what are some concrete steps TA teams can take to implement skills-based job descriptions and provide capabilities over credentials?
Absolutely. So we already know AI can be a very powerful support tool, right? But it it's even more effective, or it works when it's used with intention and structure. So I have to really emphasize that, because it's by the time a generative AI reached us, it's already been embedded for quite some time now. So now you'll probably see a huge influx of like pre-written prompts that's floating out there on LinkedIn. You've probably seen those cheat sheets, I call it, right? Those PDF files and what we used to call it reference guides. And then they go, here are 365 prompts that you can use today, and just plug it, and you'll meet all of your HR needs. Right? But they're not really grounded. So in order for them to be effective, they have to be grounded in your actual talent strategy, and they need to be aligned with your existing talent lifecycle. Because AI prompts, or just AI in general, can easily create a lot of noise. What I mean by that is, like, sometimes it actually creates too many ideas, and it can be very inconsistent. And even if you look at ChatGPT on the very bottom, it says that it could result into inaccurate information. So it does disclose that. So it's not like AI is telling you everything accurate. And the reason why it's inaccurate, because it's so general. So it may not pertain to what you're looking for. It's just collective. It's just pulling out all of the data that's out there that's related to the prompt that you put in. And if your prompt is very general, it's going to give you general information, right? I've also seen a lot of my clients are actually coming back and telling me, oh, AI is great, but I'm so overwhelmed. It's so overwhelming because there's just so much out there. But they're finding out it doesn't actually fit their roles. It doesn't fit their structure. It doesn't even fit their hiring goals. So when we look at AI as a tool, I really want to emphasize why structure really matters, right? So AI should be supporting your process, not replacing it. So here's a very good example about, if I take the talent life cycle, attract and hire phases. So that's in the very, very beginning, right? So you can use prompts like spot trending skills in your market. So what are the trending skills? Not stop there, but in your market. What does your market look like? Be very specific. Analyze top performers to identify core capabilities. So who are the people who are doing their job amazingly and they're being very effective? So if it's sales, who are the top closers? What are they doing? What are their capabilities? And use that as kind of like your index, like your capability index for sales or for closing business. And then also you might want to come up with a prompt that write a structured skill-based interview question instead of just saying come up with interview question. You're looking for specific questions around their skills. So the goal isn't just to automate and help the process go faster. You really wanted to leverage AI to bring consistency. You want to have clarity, right? And then equally, if not more important, equity into your existing hiring process. So that's really, again, driving that whole equity issue. And so when I think about the way I wrote this ebook, I wrote it with the intent, it was a methodology that I have done over the years. So it's a proven methodology. So why change it? Because it's been effective. And I don't want to call it generic enough, but it's a end-to-end or start to finish life cycle around talent. So the AI prompts that are included in this ebook really has a purpose, and it supports a specific strategy, right? Or a specific stage within that strategy.
I like that. So I found out, I've been using AI a little bit more and more each month, and I think it helps me find out exactly what I'm looking for. Like, it will ask questions back to you, and it will say, okay, are you looking for this? Or are you looking for that? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I need to be a little bit more clear in my communication style. So
Right.
I'm hoping that in the hiring process that this gets, the hiring managers on the same page for what the ideal candidate looks like for them, and what in the organization, like what exactly are they looking to beef up in the organization by hiring somebody.
Yeah, and you bring up, that's actually a really good point, because you can actually reverse it. So you can actually put your job description into the prompt and then ask ChatGPT what kind of candidates would you actually be getting.
Yeah, and then let's say you're opening up a new business unit or something, and it's not something that you have a ton of experience with, and like let's say you're working at a car manufacturer and they're getting into electric vehicles.
Right.
So now you got to hire all these people that have experience with lithium batteries. Like ChatGPT or whatever AI will be able to tell you what these top performers are supposed to look like.
Exactly. And also, what about if you're getting a whole pool of candidates that have more transferable skills that are not obvious, right? They're coming from a different industry trying to break into that space. I think I read this morning the number one top jobs for graduates is construction, or college graduates. I thought,
That's sad.
construction, because they know that AI can't touch it yet.
Yep.
But then I read one of the questions from the review. One of the readers said, "But what if their major is not, or maybe their previous experiences was not in construction? But you're telling me the construction is one of the top trends for the fastest growth. So if I want a job, I want to go into construction. How am I able to do that if I never really had experience? At least not from my knowledge." So a talent acquisition team member can do the same thing. These are the resumes that I'm getting a lot of. Plug that in and say, this is the role that we're trying to fill. What are some of the skills and capability for this individual or filtering through these resumes, identify top 5 candidates that have the most number of transferable skills that has the shortest learning curve for me to just where I'm only applying business knowledge, right, or product knowledge for them to get up to speed and enable for them to be successful in this job role. You can use that in such a way to reverse it. So this is what I have to work with, and then this is what I'm posting. What can I do? What can I do with this? And then come up with a plan.
And I think there's this massive backlash online and whatnot of people thinking that ATS systems are going to just like immediately kick them out of something because they don't have a particular word in there. I think if you're using some of the AI to kind of get the better picture of what the candidate is, I'm hoping that this kind of gets rid of some of that.
Right.
Because nobody teaches you how to write a resume. Nobody teaches you. I mean, thank God ChatGPT is around that I can have ChatGPT write a good resume for me for some certain job, because nobody knows what they're doing. And so I think it's going to help people be more noticeable. I hope that it helps them get more noticeable. So,
No,
what are some
absolutely.
other ways that, so let's delve into this book a little bit. Like, what are some like cool examples that you help like what are some steps that are included in the book that can help professionals?
Well, so one thing, as I mentioned before, about just because you have the AI prompts and even the specific AI prompts that I have in my ebook, you can plug it in, you can have the results. But oftentimes, a lot of the talent organization, we have folks that are really good at the transactional part of their job. So they can execute on that prompt. But once you have that deliverable, they really don't know what to do with it, right? Or what it serves. So there is that extension that's really critical as part of the methodology. So just because you added the AI prompt, it doesn't stop there. There is an output. And in my book, it clearly explains what problem are you trying to solve for. So if it's for change management or for what else can this deliverable be used for in the next stages of the talent life cycle? Is it for succession planning? Is it to come up with a strategy for internal mobility? So I've taken an extra step to really map that out, that you don't just stop just because your AI prompt created the content that you're looking for. Now is what are you going to do with it? And then why is this important, right? And how do we go and measure success? So then that's huge, especially now we already have a hard time measuring success in general with our old tools and systems. And now we have AI. So, how can we leverage that? What kind of metrics that will help us define what success look like?
Do you have any suggestions for metrics that people should be using?
Oh, absolutely. And one of the first one I would definitely recommend is I love looking at the percentages of job description that are skill based, right? Because we already talked about if we were to make that change, that shift. Let's start with what's the percentage of the actual job description that's in our database right now that are actually skill based. So start with that. So once we know, is it 50%, is it 70%, and it would be awesome if it's only 20%, because that means that we're being really successful and we've been writing really strong skill based job description. Start with that. So that's one metric that will help you identify how much work is ahead of you. And then the other one would be, well, there's several other ones too. The other one would be time to fill and capability match. So the more you are identifying capabilities, it should be reducing your time to fill. But if your time to fill is fairly long, is it because it's not matching up to the capabilities that for a particular job role? I would also recommend, especially this is an ongoing challenge, internal mobility, right? Are people moving into the new roles based on skills? Are they more likely to apply? Is it more clear? Instead of saying, okay, you've been in this company for this many years, or you receive manager training
Yeah.
that's certified in our company, therefore then you can move on. Well, we're assuming that that individual never had previous managerial skills, or they can only have the company X managerial skills in order to move on, right? So looking at what that looks like, retention of hires brought in through this approach, that would be awesome. Are they hitting the mark? So the people we're hiring based on skill-based job posting, are they staying longer because there's clarity in their roles? Because oftentimes they quit. They said, "Oh, this is not what I signed up for. This is not what I interviewed for. I'm actually doing more transactional, and I believe I'm at this level, but you're making me do work at this level, right?" Because they define it themselves. So and of course, all this feeds into the diversity. So this really helps with your DE&I strategy. Even though I know that we are facing some challenges with formalizing a DE&I program, but many companies, which is a great thing, we're really still being very mindful and making sure that there is a strong diversity in our candidates pipelines. So these are some of the top of mind metrics that I would definitely recommend to look at.
Yeah, and I mean, we all love DEI, and we know that we need diverse talent, and it just helps everything have better ideas instead of getting a room of yes men that are just going to agree on one side. We just have to call it something else
Right, right,
for the
right.
next 4 years. Just call it something else. We'll come up with a secret term. I don't know. But
I know.
so it's just what I do love about like the AI though is that as you're writing these prompts, as you're looking for these things, you're consistently benchmarking it against what everybody else is doing. And so you're like, what is everybody else doing in terms of hiring the skill? What can I do to make sure you're not falling behind? And so
Right.
like it moved like a rising tide raises all boats. And so I do love that. So we're coming close on time, but where can people find your book and more information about you? And how can they learn more?
Thank you I really appreciate that. You know, we actually talked about this early on about what would you publish an ebook? Well, my ebook today is published on Gumroad. And it's basically there's so many different platforms out there, but I think it's more not where it's published, but where you can find it is find me on LinkedIn. I would love to connect with all of you to address any questions that you have, and then I can send you the link. I've done the post. I think Mike, it would be great if you can attach that link as well to that book with this posting, or I can
I will.
definitely do that as well. Without complicating things, because I know that if I say a specific platform, it's almost certain that it's going to change tomorrow because that's how technology
Well,
is.
for right now, this book is up to date. It's ready to go,
Absolutely.
and people can get into it and start trying planning around and try to get ahead of some of this
Oh, completely.
change.
Because it's so practical, right? Because it's the intent of this whole ebook is really to spark job redesign and conversations. You can already copy the prompts into ChatGPT or Copilot, whatever that you want to use to brainstorm job descriptions, interview plans. You can have a working session with hiring managers, delegate prompts. This is the part there's even in the page, I have a little cutouts where, like back in the flashcard days, if you have a team, which you'll be really lucky if you did, you could cut out those prompts and divide it as deliverables. So divide and conquer. And this way you can, and all of those prompts are aligned to the entire life cycle. So you're not missing a beat. You're still really following the sequential order to effectively solve all of your talent needs. Right. And it could be, and it's not defined that, oh, this is just for your hiring. It's for from everything from attracting all the way down to development or to promotion. So you have that full life cycle. And I would say the last takeaway is this is not theory. I'm not, we've done that. We did that in college. We did that. We studied it. We memorized it. This isn't it. This is action based. It's action ready. I don't want to call it plug and play, but it's
close.
It is close. Yeah, absolutely. But like I said very early on, it's a methodology. This is the part that, just like everyone that's listening to this, the podcast, we all have proven methodologies and procedures and process that's worked. And this is using AI prompts or AI to really enhance it. It allows you to be more creative. It allows you to have conversation with your team. And it also helps you stay focused on track and keeping our human skills relevant.
Awesome. Yes. We're not replacing humans. We're more of the orchestrators or whatever of the technology. Right. So Janie Mah is on LinkedIn. I'll also be sharing her book and links on my profile. But thank you everybody for listening to this edition of Totally Talent, and thank you, Janie. It's always great to catch up with you.
Thanks, Mike, for having me here.
Thanks for tuning in to the Totally Talent podcast by HR.com. We hope you find today's episode insightful and inspiring. Don't forget to explore more episodes and discover valuable resources at hr.com/podcasts, where you can listen to all of our podcasts. Until next time, keep leading with purpose and making a difference in the world of talent.